Live from his home studio in Arkansas, please welcome the host of Security Sidebar, John Wagnon.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to be here with you today. I'm John, and this is the Security Sidebar live stream. And we're coming to you live, obviously, as a live stream to YouTube and LinkedIn and Twitter and all the places. We always say that. So I want to connect with you today, so drop some comments in the chat and all that. Today is kind of a fun day, if you will. And that is that I was able to have a conversation with one of our SOC analysts, our Security Operations Center for Silverline. His name is Edgar Ojeda. He does great work every day. He's, keeping all of our customers safe and blocking attacks and all that. And so today's show is frankly pre-recorded. So I had this conversation with him several weeks ago, and I'm going to play that for everyone today, and that will be the show. But I will be here. I'll be here in the chat and interact. So still drop those comments, and we'll talk to you via the chat. But if I don't pop your name or comments up on the screen, it's because of the pre-recorded nature of what we'll play here in just a few minutes. So before I play that, I'll just remind you that we've got a show coming up this Thursday. Where are they now? Where are they? We don't know. So we're looking at the careers of some of the F5 employees that used to be customers, and then now they're F5 employees. It's just kind of fun to follow and just see what career decisions they've made and where they are now. And then Jason's got at the core coming up next Tuesday. So a week from today, he's going to be doing some iRule troubleshooting and all that. So a lot of fun stuff. After that, just as a word, we've got the holiday season coming up with Christmas and New Year's and all that kind of stuff. And so we'll have a few days off of our live stream, but then we'll be back strong in 2022, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So with that, let me introduce, I guess, myself in a weird way, along with Edgar Ojeda, and I hope you guys enjoy this conversation that we had. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is that fateful time again. It is the Security Sidebar live stream. I'm John, and I'm excited to be here with all of you today, where we can connect and talk about all things security related. And today's show is going to be amazing. We have a SOC analyst, the Security Operations Center here at F5, where they do all kinds of amazing security work every single day about different cyber attacks and how do you stop them and what do they involve and all those kinds of things. And so we're going to get into the details of not only what they look at, but why they're in demand and maybe even what does it take to be one of these superstars, right? And so with that, I just wanted to let you know that today's show is going to be awesome. We're streaming live to YouTube and LinkedIn and Twitter and all the great places. So connect with us, ask questions, and we'll interact with you. So also, we've got some upcoming shows that are going to be amazing. We've got our DevCentral Connects live stream every week, so make sure you check us out there. Make sure you check out our YouTube page and smash that subscribe button, and you'll get notified on all the great content that we have every single week. So we look forward to that. All right, so with that, let me welcome my guest, Mr. Edgar Ojeda from the SOC, from F5 SOC. Edgar, my friend, it is great to see you. How you doing today?
Hey, John, I'm doing pretty good. What about yourself?
Awesome, man. It's always a great day for me when I get to talk to one of the SOC superstars, Edgar Ojeda. So, man, I'm having a great time, That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, good stuff. John. Well, Edgar, I wanted to start out by asking just a couple of kind of basic questions for people that may not know what the SOC is, or what a SOC analyst does. So maybe give us like a little, day in the life of a SOC analyst. Like what do you do each and every day in that role?
All right. So the SOC, and just for those that don't know, like it stands for the Security Operations Center. So what we do is we analyze all the traffic that we receive into our scrubbing centers, so that we can identify any potential attacks that can affect our customers. We also keep track of alerts that we receive, for for different aspects. Like if there's an attack or a burst of traffic per se, then we receive alerts because we have different types of alerts configured to make sure that that all the traffic that comes into our network is legitimate. If something goes out of the ordinary, or if it matches some of the signatures that we have configured in place, then that is kind of like the basically the notification, right, for us in the SOC to start capturing traffic, review our logs, and try to distinguish between what looks good and looks bad. And once something bad has been identified, then we have to find a way to to basically stop that type of attack, right?
Yeah, that's amazing. So, there's this whole team of security operations center analysts that sit together. Or maybe you don't have to even sit together. Maybe you can kind of, be remote to an extent. But nonetheless, you have this team that is constantly monitoring all of our customers being the companies that say, hey, F5, Silverline, we need you to help protect us because maybe they don't have a big security team. Maybe they don't have the resources to manage their own sophisticated web application firewall policy, or their sophisticated, bot defense, or those kinds of things, right? And so I mean, you guys all sit together as a team and say, hey, we're going to be watching all of our customer traffic, and then, see when these little spikes happen or when these attacks happen, right? So I think that's absolutely fantastic. Maybe one quick question that's just curious to me. Would you say that you see attacks, even if they're just kind of low level attacks, are they a fairly regular thing, or is it kind of rare that you see an attack, or is it pretty common?
Actually, it's pretty common. I mean, especially I'm more specialized in the distributed denial of service.
Yeah.
So in my team, we actually see attacks pretty often, as often as daily, right? 1, 2, or more sometimes. So and it also varies. Of course, there are certain periods of the year that we see an increase, but and there are some other days or periods of the year that we consider that as peacetime, but even during the peacetime, we still see all sorts of attacks.
Yeah. So, suffice it to say, there's no downtime. There's no days off that attackers, have, right? So, it's a constant thing, man. So it's just a nonstop. I think it's absolutely fascinating. So, you mentioned that you're kind of the DDoS, one of the DDoS, specific. Not that you can't do other bot attacks or WAF, attacks or whatever. But on the DDoS, are there certain DDoS attack types that you see more than others? Do the attackers tend to use the same type of attack vectors over and over, or does it tend to be just all over the place, and you're seeing all kinds of different attack types, every single day?
So that is an interesting question, because actually, we see certain vectors predominantly, especially all the amplification vectors,
Mm-hmm.
anything that requires an open resolver in the case of DNS, or a third-party misconfigured device in order to send responses to the customer, and that's what creates the reflection attack.
Mm-hmm.
So those are kind of I would say the most common attacks that we see, along with TCP SYN floods. Those are the most common, and probably that is because there are plenty of tools out there, that some of them are for free, that a script kiddie, anyone can just download and launch an attack.
Yeah, it's like a DDoS for hire kind of thing. Legitimately, that's a thing. DDoS as a service. There's everything as a service. Infrastructure as a service. Security as a service. Software as a service. DDoS as a service. It's crazy, man. So yeah. Yeah, no joke. So, I mean, people do these kinds of things, but I do think it's interesting that you do see, I guess there tends to be a pattern to this where it's like, all right, we see TCP SYN floods, a lot, or we see UDP reflection or amplification attacks, whether it's, DNS or NTP or CLDAP or those kinds of things, right? And so I guess it occurs to me that then if we've got, all these different customers and the attackers are coming with, the same types of attacks, not that they don't change. I mean, there are definitely some unique attack vectors, right? But if on average they send the same type of attack vectors every time, then I can only imagine you've gotten pretty good at stopping, TCP SYN floods or UDP, DNS reflection or those kinds of things. Is that fair to say?
I would say, yeah, that is fair. Like, with time, and I see it, and I can give you an example, right? Like for me nowadays, like when we see an attack or we receive an alert, and then I start analyzing traffic, just as traffic it's flowing because it's live traffic, so we see it just coming. So as traffic is flowing through our wires, then like I immediately, and I can see just by the type of traffic, I can identify a pattern. The new analysts, because sometimes I also train some of the new analysts. And so the new analysts, like they actually like get like just like, why? Where did you see that? And I'm like, oh, well, yeah, it's just like experience. Like you start becoming familiar with traffic patterns, and then it just comes kind of like in a way natural, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's just that experience. Edgar, sometimes I wonder if you dream about, like TCP SYN floods in your brain and all that, right? Like you count packets as you fall asleep, right? So no, it's good stuff, man. So, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. The more you look at this, the more you observe different attacks, then the better you are at seeing these things. And I can only imagine, I mean, if you see what I'll call kind of a routine, it's not a routine if you're the one being attacked, but kind of a routine TCP SYN flood or a routine UDP, DNS amplification or something like that, then if for someone like yourself, you could be like, oh, I've seen this 1,000 times. I just, bam, I know exactly what to do to stop it. And I can imagine you can probably mitigate that pretty quickly if it's one of those more routine type attacks. Is that fair to say?
That is definitely something fair to say. That is, I mean, we also, or well, at least myself here, all or any type of reflection attacks, those TCP SYN floods, or the attacks that we are very familiar with, like, we in the SOC, we actually mitigate them in under 2 minutes, right? Like that's kind of like our pride in the SOC. We say that, well, we see an attack, and in 2 minutes we are already mitigating it. So really, the impact to our customers is pretty much non-existent.
No doubt. I mean, if I'm a customer and then I'm the victim of a big DDoS attack and you can knock it out in less than 2 minutes, then I think before I even have a chance to dial the phone number and say, hey, SOC, can you help me? It's already mitigated. Like it's already stopped, So that's amazing. Those are some amazing metrics. So that's super cool. Super cool. Well, good deal, man. Well, hey, so, suffice it to say, the SOC or SOC analysts like yourself are in huge demand because of all these different attacks. I mean, we've seen ransomware stuff coming in. We've seen DDoS attacks. We've seen, credential stuffing. You see it all, and it's all over the news. It's all over different companies. And frankly, there's a ton of them that you just don't ever hear about. I mean, not every single attack makes the news, right? It makes the nightly news. So, this is an area of cybersecurity that is in such demand right now. And I thought it would be kind of cool to kind of go over maybe one or two of the of the actual attacks that you've seen. Like, is there an example of one, that we could kind of talk through? And I know you and I had a chance to talk about, there was in terms of DDoS attacks, the largest DDoS attack in the history of what Silverline has seen, which, goodness, Silverline's been around for years now, and they've seen a lot of stuff from a lot of customers. But this one attack in particular was a financial organization, a very, very popular financial organization that was the victim of a large-scale volumetric DDoS attack that reached at its peak 1.2 terabits per second in volume of traffic. And let me tell you, man, most companies do not have a pipe that can handle that kind of traffic. And so when you get flooded with 1.2 terabits of volumetric DDoS traffic, it is going to knock you out. And so that's why you need in front of yourself something like Silverline, defense, like in this case, DDoS protection, that's going to be able to filter out all the bad traffic and only let the good traffic in. So with that, Edgar, I thought we would put up a little graph right here, and I could show everyone that's watching kind of what happened. But if you don't mind, maybe you could kind of talk us through a couple of the details. So let me pop this thing up really quick. And this was the 1.2 terabit per second. I will mention very briefly that upper right, bar graph is not actually part of the DDoS attack. That just shows like the attack trends, like the DDoS attacks have been on the rise over the past several years, and they continue to rise. So DDoS is a very active, attack type when we talk about cyber attacks. But anyway, Edgar, if you don't mind, maybe you could talk to us about that graph below and like what happened there with this organization.
Yep. So this customer is it's part of the financial kind of like market. It's part of the financial market. This customer is one of our customers that usually gets attacked. We call it kind of like constantly, like at least 2 to 3 times a week, and they get attacked with these quick. We call them drive-bys because they last less than 1 minute. We see them in all type of different vectors or forms. Like we see like NTP reflection, memcache reflection, DNS, TCP SYNFlow. And however, in this particular case, what we saw is like, if you see the first kind of like spike, it reached about, here.
Yeah, kind of this area right here, right?
Yep. You see it reach about 800 gigs. That is when we started seeing this attack. Like on our monitors, we started seeing like a large influx of traffic going to like some specific IPs. We started capturing traffic and we started mitigating the attack. And then while we were mitigating, these attackers actually also started sending the attack to almost each one of the hosts within the whole /24 subnet. So like they were sending about anywhere between 3 to 15 gigs to each host. So like, well, just think about it, like 3 gigs multiplied by 254 usable IP addresses. So that gives us close to 700 gigs plus the attack power that they had, because they already had launched an 800. So an 800 gig just against 1 or 2 different IPs. So these attackers seem to have like enough power, and what we saw, right, like the 1.2 terabits just ramped up because of all the aggregation of those IPs that were being attacked. The good thing, as I was saying earlier as well, since we monitor our traffic and we work with our customers to tune the expected traffic values that they would see or they would expect on a regular basis, then that helps us have like this additional visibility, and we can act before actual problems occur, right? Like before the customer actually sees an impact. And in fact, with this 1.2 terabit attack, even though it was a massive amount of traffic, the customer didn't even notice. Like pretty much, it was just if we didn't tell them, they wouldn't have known that they were attacked by a 1.2 terabit. So.
I tell you what, Edgar, that is fascinating. So, I mean, you have here, I'm just going to kind of move my mouse on the screen a little bit. You have this little peak. I say little peak, that's a big peak actually. And then it comes down and then it's like this massive launch. And so, I mean, that right there, 1.2 terabits per second is absolutely massive. And to know that the customer didn't even see the effect of that is fascinating to me. And so, so fantastic job by the SOC. And I'm gonna kind of remove that back down and just have me and you on the screen for a second here. One of the interesting things that people that are watching this may have noticed is that entire attack, the first spike and then the second spike, was only a few minutes long. I mean, I think it's like less than 10 minutes for both of those to happen. So it's almost like you've kind of got, I'm not going to say complete silence, because there's always little kind of low level attacks that seem to be going on. But then you have this massive like mayhem, like just absolute craziness ensues for a period of just, 10 minutes or so. And then it just kind of tapers off. One thing that occurs to me is, that's a pretty interesting 10 minutes of your life right there. Is that a pretty common pattern that you see, that, with these big DDoS attacks, do they kind of come and spike big and then they go away after a few minutes, or do they continue, for the most part? I know there's exceptions, but for the most part, is it kind of a hit hard all at once and then kind of go away, or what do you tend to see on that?
So I've seen a bit of like both scenarios, like come like full force, hit quick and go. So we call them hit and run. But
hit and run,
also,
okay. Yeah.
But also we've seen like some other attacks that remain steady for hours, right? Like at higher volumes, then it remains just steady for several hours. We have had a few attacks that could span sometimes for days or weeks. Those are more rare, but we have seen those. But I would say like the most common attacks that we see are like, they last less than 30 minutes for the most part.
Interesting. And I got to believe that it may be, I try to put my mind myself in the mind of the attacker sometimes. And I got to imagine that at least some of them say, hey, we've organized this attack. We're going to launch it at this certain victim, at this certain, host or whatever. And then they launch it, and then they see, hey, what we are doing right now is not working, because Silverline is just like absorbing all of our attack traffic, so if they're attacking over here and Silverline's here in the middle, and then the actual company's here on this side, then Silverline's just absorbing all that attack traffic. And so only the good stuff comes through to the company, right? Which is, like you said, what happened here. I mean, it's kind of mind blowing to me that it's like, this company just sustained a 1.2 terabit per second volumetric DDoS attack, absolutely massive. And then they're just, living the dream, man. They're just like, hey, I had no idea that even happened to me, which is part of the power of Silverline and what you guys do. So, yeah, it's fascinating. So sometimes I just wonder if it's like from the attacker, hey, we launched this attack, it didn't work, and so we got to move on to another target that maybe it will work on. Do you see some of that maybe?
Like depends what's the objective of the attacker. Sometimes we see like actually attackers get frustrated and they will try to, the attackers that actually know what they're doing, they will try to then affect the service provider or the protection, right? Like we have had a few customers that they get attacked with somewhat sizable attacks. Of course, we protect them, and then minutes later, we see like our direct links with our peers, with our internet providers, being attacked as well directly. So that we attribute that it's the same attacker. On their frustration, they are trying to bring us down, so that bringing us down, they can bring down, basically the customer that they are after. But it's kind of hard because we have good protections on our system, right, to precisely prevent that from happening.
Yeah, exactly. That is fascinating to me. It's like the attackers go after like their target, but then if their target is being protected by, this awesome protection, feature, then the attackers go after the protection people, right? But like you said, I mean, you guys have been at this for years and you've seen so many attacks. Not that there's not one out there that could be really sophisticated and whatever, but for the most part, you're like, hey, we're pretty able to sustain some of these attacks. I mean, we know what to do. We know how to block these things, right? That's what we do, right? So So anyway, that's awesome, man. Well, Edgar, it occurs to me too that if someone is watching this and they're like, "Hey, man, I'm learning all about the Security Operations Center." I'm like, you hear DDoS attacks that happen, but to actually talk to people that work in this every single day, and then even listen to one of the examples, it's pretty fascinating to be like, "Wow, man, that thing actually really happened," or whatever. But it also occurs to me like, hey, what would it take to become one of these SOC analysts, like one of these, superstars, one of these superheroes, as it were, right? Like Edgar Ojeda, right? And so I wonder if you could tell us, was there a certain amount of training that you needed, or some kind of background, or, that kind of thing to get into the Security Operations Center?
I think one thing that, I can talk to you a little bit about like how I joined the Security Operations Center, right? One of the things that I have, and I think that'll be something that every SOC analyst must have, it's passion for security. Security is not for all. There are times that seriously, security can burn you out because it's overwhelming at times. But you have to have that passion, that desire to keep learning, that desire to play these cat and mouse with attackers. That attackers find a vulnerability, and you are trying to find a way to patch or to protect against that vulnerability. And the attacker will try to find another one, and that's why I say cat and mouse kind of deal. What else? One other aspect that got me, and I think it's also very important for any security professional. You have to have your networking concepts very, very well known. You have to understand the OSI layers, what happens at each one of the OSI layers. You have to understand how a TCP session is established. You have to have solid and strong networking foundation in order to be able to do some security. And that's just to get started. After that, you also need to understand and know how the whole HTTP protocol works, because not all attacks are only on or network based. We have application attacks that you have to understand how HTTP, what do you expect as a normal behavior, as a legitimate request. So you need to have that experience, or at least knowledge, right? For me, for example, before joining the SOC, I worked as a network security leader for about 6 years. Before that, I was also I was part of a network security team, not as a leader, just as a consultant. I was in that position prior to that. I think it was 5 years, if memory serves me right. So I came to F5 with roughly over 10 years of security experience under my belt, right? It's not, of course, it's not necessary to have that many years of experience, but any SOC analyst must have some sort of experience. And even if they have no experience, maybe just have to have the willingness, the desire to learn and to get involved in that. That is something, because definitely it's a field that can offer a lot of benefits and a lot of learning. You never stop learning in this field.
Right. I can only imagine. This is a field where things move quickly, and new protocols are added or updated, or and certainly the attackers are going to figure out new ways to attack and take advantage of maybe problems in the protocols, or the whatever, or the way that the infrastructure and the routing and all that is put together. So it only makes sense that you need to have some kind of, basic understanding of the OSI model. What does layer 3 or layer 4 do? What is TCP all about? All the way up to layer 7 and HTTP and, those kinds of protocols, so that, because that's what you're going to be looking at every day to figure out, hey, was that an attack or not, or whatever. And obviously you have tools to help with that, but you need to have the knowledge. I mean, the basic knowledge to kind of know what's going on. But I also love what you said about just the curiosity, about the desire, the motivation, just a personal drive to say, hey, I want to do this. And sometimes I think that might be even more important than having a great knowledge of the HTTP protocol or whatever, right? I mean, again, I'm not saying you can have zero knowledge of that, but you can always learn more about that. But I tell you what, that inherent drive, that motivation to say, hey, I love this stuff and I want to get better and I want to learn something new every day. I think that's a critical skill to have. So, and then tell me as well, I mean, you guys are, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, kind of, I mean, it's an always on operation, right? So, So there has to be some of that drive, like, hey, I really want to do this. But at the same time, you get to be right in the middle of the fight, like at the pointy end of the spear, as it were, like right at the heart of it all. So yeah, I think that's fascinating. Well, good stuff, man. Well, I appreciate you sharing like what that involves or what it takes to be a SOC analyst. And I certainly appreciate your expertise and experience and, everything that you bring to the table for the F5 Silverline SOC and sharing that stuff with us today, that story and, about the 1.2 terabits per second. And I mean, what a fascinating thing that is. And just what the SOC does. So that's, it's such important work. And I really appreciate you and the whole SOC team for everything you do, man. So I just want to say thanks for everything you guys do.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me here.
That's awesome, man. Well, Edgar, I hope you have a great day, my friend. And we'll do this again sometime. It's always a fun time to talk to you. Really appreciate you, man. All right, man. You take care. All right. Well, everybody, what a fascinating conversation with, with one of F5's finest, Edgar Ojeda there at the Silverline SOC, and just keeping all of us safe every single day, in the midst of these cyber attacks. Because, man, these things come fast and furious and all the time. And so you need people like Edgar on the front lines to stop these things. I mean, you heard it yourself. He stops these things in an average of under 2 minutes. You don't even have time to figure out what just happened, and it's like, oh, it's already done. Like it's already stopped. So great work, Edgar, and the whole F5 Silverline SOC team. So thanks so much to those guys. Well, hey, I would just remind everybody that we have got some great shows coming up. I wanted to mention too that we did a webinar where we went into great detail on several different stories. It was me and it was Edgar, and it was the man, the myth, the legend, Pete Silva with us, where we spent an hour just kind of digging into a whole bunch of different actual stories from attacks that the SOC has seen. So we'll link to that down in the description. So check that out as well. So, hey, it's been another great Security Sidebar live stream. I appreciate everybody connecting with us, watching our content. Like we said, you can hit subscribe on our YouTube channel, and you'll get notified about shows like this, or our DevCentral Connects, or the Lightboard lessons, or anything. There's all kinds of great content out there on our YouTube channel. So with that, let me just say thanks to all of you for making DevCentral the greatest community in the world, and we want to connect with you, every single week. So thanks for being here this time, and we will see all of you next time on DevCentral Connects.
This week on DevCentral Connects. Who can it be coming on our show? Join us, and you too will know. Who can it be now? DevCentral has always been the core of F5's global user community. Passionate users solve their challenges here, but also network with their peers and F5ers alike. Some of these passionate users even make the jump over to F5 to become employees. Join us Thursday, December 16th, 12:30 Pacific, as we chat with some of these former customers turned F5ers and learn about how they made the leap from customer to employee. The link in the description sets your reminder. DevCentral Connects is live every Thursday, 12:30 Pacific, for this star-studded event. Who can it be next? Who can it be now?